Well, howdy, everybody. Guys, I want to say a massive thank you. The response to the first episode has been unfreaking believable. And to be honest, it's been very overwhelming. Like, it's been so cool to connect with everyone and kind of get the feedback on the podcast. I'm really glad that you guys are getting as much insight out of it as I am. And the goal with the podcast is just to keep the content rolling for you guys. So thank you so much for everyone who's reached out on socials, for everyone who's given me a shout out on the socials, given the podcast a shout out on the socials. I do really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And while the podcast is in its infancy, that stuff really helps. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much. It really does mean a lot to me. I have been in talks with some companies, and I mean, if you're a company looking to collaborate with the podcast in any way, potentially in regards to like some prize giveaways, I think that could be a really cool way to start to reward the listeners. I mean, thank you guys so much for what you've done already, and it's been 1 week, so I would love to see, hopefully we can get some companies on board that would get together some little prize packs and chuck them out. That would be awesome. But I mean, guys, this week we have Mr. Kev Schilf, and this is incredible. We talk deep about rut season for the Reds, but also about what you do outside of the rut. And I mean, he is a very knowledgeable guy. He grew up on a red farm, so he knows he lived half of his life looking at these animals and seeing the things that they do. And so he has a lot of insight. So listen to this one, listen to it carefully. Make sure you guys are rut ready because the Reds are roaring, and it's going to be incredible to see them in the flesh. So guys, I hope you do get a lot out of this. I know I certainly did, and I just hope that you can get the same response from it. Once again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's been awesome to connect with you guys and just to see how much the podcast has helped everyone out. So thank you guys so much. Hey there, and welcome to Becoming a Bowhunter. I'm your host, Maddie, and join me and our guests as we take the quality of meat back into our own hands. Searching the wild for free-ranged animals to harvest as ethically as we can. I interview a variety of specialists from the bow hunting community to help fast-track your journey as a bow hunter. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this chinwag on one of your favorite topics in the world, bow hunting. This week is brought to you by TR Saddlery. That's TR space SADDLERY. Tom is an incredible, I don't know how you'd say it, saddlerer? I'm not sure, but his leather work is absolutely incredible. I have a belt from him, and I thrash the hell out of that belt. I take it out hunting with me all the time, but I also just wear it. To be honest, it's also my nice belt. So I take it and I wear it on good occasions. I take it and I wear it in the field when I'm hunting. It has not lost color. It doesn't have the scratches on it. It doesn't have anything to show that it's been worn, which is awesome. And I've had it for a good 2 years already now and absolutely crushing it. But I mean, he can do everything from a saddle for your horse all the way through to a sheath for your knife. So make sure you guys do check him out. Just get across to his Facebook page. It's TR Saddlery. Once again, thank you guys for supporting the podcast. I do really appreciate it. Alrighty, here we are. Mr. Kev Schilf, welcome.
Thanks, bud. Thanks for having me.
Very awesome to have you. So it kind of worked out really well. You work 10 minutes from where I live, so It was just a match made in heaven for the interview to happen. Yeah. I heard of you on Hunting Camp Down Under, and since then I kind of reached out, and it seemed to make sense because I was after red deer in the similar sort of area that you are hunting. And I had a few questions as a beginner, so I hit you up, and you've been a wealth of knowledge straight away for me, and a really good, like, for instance, I spooked some deer one day, and I thought, I've gone and fucked this, like, I've just ruined my whole weekend, and sent you a message, and you're like, no, mate, it's all good, as long as you didn't spook them too bad, go back, see if they're there tomorrow, and sure enough, they were, so it kind of saved the bad situation, which is good. And I mean, it's as simple as just getting that little heads up. But when you're starting in the sport or in the hobby or the passion, whatever you want to call it, it's handy to have those little things.
Yeah. It's good to have a reference point.
Yeah,
basically. And since doing that podcast with Hunting Camp Down Under and Craig, the response has been overwhelming from beginners, actually. So
good.
It's really good to see that our passion or sport or hobby is alive and thriving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. All right, excellent. So, I mean, the big things, I guess, that we want to talk about is red deer today, and it kind of starts from your background where you grew up on a red deer farm.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, it's pretty cool for the skull. For those who are watching on YouTube, the skull in the background, I found that and I sent a photo to Kev and he kind of told me a bit about it. But just now when he came in, he was able to tell me so much about just the skull and how old the animal was and everything just based on that, which is obviously huge to know because for me, I had no idea. It's like, oh, what is this? What is that? It just looks cool for me. So I'm like, oh, that's great. But you hear of 4, 5, 6 points on an antler and then you never actually take, I guess, understanding to what that is from a beginner level.
Yeah.
And so it was good just to even talk about that now. But what I want to get into is more so from the hunting side of you. So when you come into a property and you know that there's deer there, but you necessarily haven't found them as such, what are you looking for? What are you going to search for on on a property that has deer?
Well, sign
Yeah.
is the first thing. If you can't find the deer, you need to find the sign. So water, head around your waters, look for tracks. Head around your sweet spots, your benches, your green gullies, because deer are browsers. They're gonna sort out the very best food that they can find at any time. They're not grazers like cattle or sheep. They browse on just the very best that they can find. So wherever there's a wet gully or a green bench, head there, look for their scat or their crap.
Yeah.
Look for rub trees. Look on the fence line for deer hair, especially on barbed wire.
That's been a big one for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll find it. The low points, the crossing areas under fences, you'll just see the deer
Just a little tuft of hair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little tuft of hair stuck on the barbs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, there's no perfect science to it, but get to know the block and walk, do the miles. You'll get the smiles, they say. So especially water, where they can leave their print and leave a mark. That's where you want to look. Yeah.
And something that I've come to learn is basically depending on your farmers will usually rotate their cattle, and where the cattle are, the deer tend to stick away from.
Yeah, they don't like cattle.
Don't like the cattle at all. Yeah.
They don't like cattle.
And
no.
so I'll find them in a block, and I'll go to that block, and they'll be there multiple times until the cattle are there, and then they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to where the cattle were.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's almost like clockwork. You can see where they're going to be. Wherever the cattle are, the deer aren't going to be, and vice versa.
Yeah. They don't like competing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they basically just don't like their company. I don't know what it is. Antisocial sort of critters.
Yeah.
Apart from their
Happy in
own
their own clump.
species.
Yeah.
But they don't like cattle.
So in regards to feed, obviously around Australia we're starting to see some pretty bad droughts. I mean, the difference in 2 weeks from being up at the property that I go to was huge.
Yep.
Like everything was green to everything was brown with green tips all of a sudden, and water had dried up. Like it was really quite a fast turnaround. That's just how brutal the sun is.
Yep.
What are you looking for when you don't have the green valleys as such? What are you chasing? Like do they like lantana bush? They're like, is there anything you should look for?
Yep. Anywhere where there's like green, and it doesn't necessarily need to be green, but fresh growth, which is basically going to be green.
Green, yeah.
They like those fresh shoots. Lantana, they only eat that at a certain time of year.
Okay. Just when it's got the berries on it?
Yeah,
Blossoming
look,
berries?
I've seen berries, but they're not ripe berries. They're green berries
Okay.
in their tummy.
Yeah.
And in my previous podcast, that'll kill cattle.
Yeah, okay.
But deer cope with it well.
They're
I've
fine.
seen their paunches. Like every time I shoot an animal or I take an animal's life, I always open up their tummy.
Yeah.
And not so much during the rut because I've shot so many and they've always got the same stuff in there basically. But outside of the rut, I like to open up their tummy, their paunch, which is where it all sits before it goes into the large intestine and all the rest of it. Open it up and see what they're eating at that time of year. So
Yeah.
it can be varying and different from area to area, but it's only a certain time of the year that you'll find lantana berry in there. But these critters will eat anything. They'll
Yeah,
eat
okay.
eucalyptus leaves, they'll eat black wattle, they'll eat stuff that you will look at and go,
Wouldn't get anything out of that.
he wouldn't, there's no nutritional value in that whatsoever, but they make it work for them.
Yeah, okay.
Like a goat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How about things like rat tail, like the different grasses that cattle won't eat? Will they eat that stuff? Do you know?
I haven't had much to do with rat tail.
Okay.
And it's specifically up on that eastern coast, Kendenga area.
Yeah.
It's a real problem up there from what I know.
Yeah.
But I've never had anything to do with it, so I can't really answer that question, mate.
Okay. No, that's cool. It just I know that's an issue for the cattle farmers, so I just wasn't sure if it was going to be the same for them, like if they would eat it, because obviously they're trying to get their hands on anything they can.
Yeah.
So I guess is there sort of habits you should be looking for with a deer? So once you maybe located them, what should you potentially be looking for? Like, do they keep to a routine to some extent? Is there, I guess, signs and things that they do regularly?
Yeah, look, they are a creature of habit, apart from the rut. Because it's
Like
game on.
mental. Yeah.
It's game on
exactly.
during the rut. So they just do whatever they need to do during the rut. But with hinds outside of the rut and with stags, they will have a roaming or a home range. And they will be, like, if it's 2 days apart or 1 day apart, they'll be in the same spot in the same area at the same time in those intervals.
Yeah.
So they are very much creatures of habit, and they do learn, like if they're picking at an area where there's really good feed and they take all the best stuff, they know that in 2 days' time, with 2 days good sunlight, that there's going to be regrowth there, and they're going to go back there to get that.
Yeah, wow.
Again.
Smart little critters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so how about times of day? Like, is there a particular time of day that they're most active? Are they nocturnal animals? Are they going to be around morning, midday, night? Like, what are they doing throughout the days?
Are we talking rut or just any time?
Just any time to start with, and then we might get rut specific.
So, morning and afternoon. Morning's my favourite time.
Yeah.
Because you run out of shooting light in the afternoon.
Exactly.
That's my problem. Morning's really good. Everything's fresh.
Yeah.
Usually you've got the night air has settled some sort of moisture on things. And you can stalk. Yeah, you can stalk more easily. But afternoon, 3 o'clock in Queensland, I call that deer o'clock. They're up out of their beds.
Yeah.
And they're starting to do their thing. So 3 until dark, especially that last hour, that's where you will see them mostly active. But they are very active at night.
Yeah.
They sleep during the day. They'll just curl up and sleep.
I saw a few questions there, but Casey McCallum was saying that he'll go and spotlight his deer over night time just to get them kind of, like, firstly find where they're kind of hanging out, but also just to get them used to the vehicles, get them used to you a little bit. And so when they're most active, he'll go out and spotlight them. Is that something you've ever heard for red deer as such? Because I think he's after more fallow.
Yeah, look, he's a very knowledgeable dude.
Okay. Probably worthwhile then.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
But depends on the size of your property and where you want to drive to and how the ease of access that you want.
Yeah.
I like walking from camp. That's just me.
Fair enough.
But they do get used to vehicles. Growing up on the deer farm, you know, we'd have wild deer come into the pens, like to the edge of the pen, and, you know, the first couple of times you'd drive past them, they'd take off.
Yeah.
But after a few weeks or a month or two, they just stand there and watch you like the pen deer.
Yeah.
So they do get used to it, and it's quite clever. A lot of guys use the electric dog or the spotlight to harvest meat.
Yeah.
But it takes the fun out of it for me.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
Funny story, actually. So the first few times I went to the property, I went with my cousin's husband. And he's a rifle hunter. And so he kind of drives to the different locations and then walks from there.
Yeah.
And so the first time I went by myself, I drove to the different locations and I'd stop and I'd hop out and go for a walk and come back to the car. And, of course, I've driven up to the section where they usually are. And I've hopped down my car and turned around, and there's just literally 2 deer standing up on the hill behind me, 200, 400 meters away from me, like within that range. And they're just looking at me, just like, what is this guy on about? And I stood there, I got my binoculars out, I moved around a fair bit. They didn't really care at all. And it wasn't until I kind of made a bit of noise, they're like, oh yeah, it's time to head off. So it's true. They just definitely get used to the cars.
They do, yeah.
I think it might change from vehicle to vehicle because they've got a white ute and the property owners have white utes. It makes it a lot easier. Yeah,
they just associate it with the vehicle that they usually see, yeah.
So how about during the rut then? Is it any time of day that they're up and about? Or
look, being in Queensland, we have to deal with the heat. We never used to have to. I used to hunt in frosted conditions. I was actually talking to Ruben DeVos this morning. And... he said that, Used to have to get wrapped up to go hunting at this time of year, but I reckon I could go hunting in my undies. But yeah, absolutely. If it's cool, overcast, a little bit drizzly, they'll rut all day. As soon as that heat gets up, it knocks the stags up. They do a lot of running, fighting, chasing, and as soon as that temperature rises, they shut down. They'll lay down and they will moan.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, it's they wait until deer o'clock and it all starts again.
Get going again. And so obviously the males are on heat. They're going a bit crazy. What happens with the does during that season? Apart from trying to run away, are they trying to keep to their habits and routines? Like, if you know where does hang out, is that a good place to go back to during the rut?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where you want to be.
Okay.
Where your hinds, where you're used to seeing your hinds or does, that's where you want to be, because your stags will come to them.
Yeah, cool.
And they'll round them up. They'll just keep them in a group. They will fight to get as many as they can in their harem, and then they'll defend that harem and try and pick up extras as they go. But they don't push them around much.
Okay.
If they've got a really good gully or side of a hill bench or something where they feel safe,
They'll just stay.
that's where they'll hold them.
Yep. And so I guess the big question is, where do they bed? Like, you might know that they're on the property, but where do you know? Like, do you know, or what should you look for in regards to where they would potentially go over night time, or where they'd actually go to lay down?
Well, during the day when they bed up, it's a spot where they've got breeze, shade, and they've got vision.
Okay.
At least, like, if they can get 360 degrees vision.
So not necessarily on a ridge. It could be in the middle of a paddock, right?
Yeah, it could be in the middle of a paddock.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've seen them bed down in the weirdest spots, but you can't get near them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Tricky.
Yes.
Make it very tricky, don't they?
Yeah, and you'll see that they'll bed down if there's more than one. They bed head to tail.
Oh, wow.
So they cover all bases. They're clever.
Yeah, they definitely are.
Yeah.
In regards to, I guess, hunting red deer. Well, actually, no, before we get into that side of things, what in regards to calling deers during the rut, so calling red deer in the rut, are you better to raw, or are you better to do like doe calls?
Right. So I only raw to locate stags.
Okay, so in a distance, if you hear something, you'd kind of, or you do it before you've even heard them.
I'll do it before I've even heard them.
Yeah.
Many times in Queensland here, if it's a really warm morning or it's been a warm night, I actually have to get them roaring in the morning, and I'll roar multiple times.
Yeah.
And hind call, just to get them interested and get their blood pumping and get them calling back. But once they get going, they keep each other going.
Yeah, okay.
So while they're calling, I'm making my way to them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so when you're doing a roar, have you got a funnel or something like that you're calling into? Like you using anything to project it, or?
So I've had a bullock horn.
Yeah.
That I've had since I was 19. I wish I've put a notch on that for every deer that I've called in, because you wouldn't be able to see much horn. But they make the best noise, the best imitation of the sound.
Okay.
It's also got a lot to do with your
throat,
the noise
vocals
that you make.
Yeah.
But they the extension of the esophagus is what you're after. So a piece of polypipe.
Yeah.
Bit of
seem like vacuum cleaner pipe.
Pipe. A lot of blokes like that. I don't know why. It's a bit weird. When I first started calling these things, I used I don't know if you remember the old Orchie bottles.
Yeah. Yep.
And I got electrical tape and wrapped it around it until I got the right sound.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and I used that for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Until I got this horn.
And so when you wrapped it, were you then re-listening? Or you obviously, because you grew up with them, so you probably knew the sound a fair bit more than most people. But would you, for instance, maybe look on YouTube channels to listen and then try to match it to some extent? Or
mate, there wasn't YouTube when I was...
No, sorry. I mean like for now. Sorry, I meant for a modern day.
There's lots of stuff to watch and learn from.
Yeah.
Jack Spinks sent me a link the other day about these guys that just call deer in New Zealand just so they can film them, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
They've got it down pat.
Yeah.
They use a lot of roaring and hind calls. But there is lots of stuff on the internet.
Sorry, so Jack Spinks sent you the YouTube clip, and so people just got down in New Zealand?
Yeah. Oh, look, it's a big part of their culture over there. And it's nothing to walk into a shop or a pub with your camo on over there.
Yeah, so bizarre, isn't it?
Whereas you do it here and you look like a weirdo.
Yeah,
People,
exactly.
People are raising their eyebrows and going, "What's this
What's this guy on
This
about?"
guy's he's a kook."
Unless it's a fashion sense, like they've got obviously a lot of camo wear as fashion.
The urban camo.
Exactly. It's almost highly frowned upon in Australia, isn't it?
Yeah, yep.
Unfortunately. And so in regards to once you've located where they're at, you start to head towards them, you start to doe call. How frequently are you doe calling?
Look, I get close to them,
Mm-hmm.
and if I can see them, and if I want to engage that critter, or if I want to take him out of the equation for meat, trophy, cull, or just if I just want to shoot him,
Yeah.
I will hind call.
Yeah.
I will get myself in a position where my outline's broken up.
Mm-hmm.
Not that really matters since I've been wearing tusk camo. That stuff is next level.
Actually, since hearing you say that, I bought the top at least. I haven't got the pants yet, but yeah, I got onto it.
It's just amazing. They're just getting better and better with what they're developing. It's actually got insect repellent impregnated in it now.
It's insane.
Crazy, but crazy good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll get close enough. If I can see him, I'll hind call if I want to get closer to him.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't see him, I'll still hind call because I want to see him.
Yeah. Okay.
And he will give me, like, as soon as you hind call, he will react.
Yeah.
He will roar. But if you roar, he may roar back.
He might not as well.
But there's a 50% chance that he's just going to slink away and not want the confrontation.
What happens if there's usually going to be other hinds around him? What are you doing then? Are you still doing the hind call to get him to come away from those?
Yeah, look, if there's other hinds around him, especially if there's a hot hind, like one that's in full estrus, it's not productive.
Okay.
It can be.
Yeah.
Depends on if he knows that he's joined her enough times that he doesn't need to worry about her anymore. But when they're in full estrus, you just can't get them away from those girls. So you just got to be patient.
Yeah.
Buy your time. Make yourself comfortable.
Yeah.
Get into the position. If it's depending on the time of the day it is, you got to be aware of your thermals here in Queensland. So once it gets to a certain temperature, all the wind that's heading downhill, if you're on the side of a hill, and let's face it, these things don't live in the flats, those winds are going to come back uphill. So you get yourself in a position that you can wait it out. He will keep moving around. He'll mosey around his girls, keep them all on check. He'll go around, sniff them all, see if any are coming into estrus. But there'll be an opportunity for you to give him a hind call.
Yeah.
And that may get him away. And if he doesn't, you got to wait for his girls to get up and move. But it may mean that you need to back out and come back in the afternoon if you're out there hunting in the morning. Or it may mean that you need to come back in the morning if you're hunting him in the afternoon. But if he's definitely a critter that you're keen on and you want to take him, you just put the time in, be patient.
And so in regards to with your thermals going, like what's the best position? Say you're on the mountain and they're on the mountain with you, you're trying to position yourself side onto them to some extent, like in line with them on the ridge?
Just above them.
Just above them.
It's very hard for a deer to look up. They can't do that. And they can't do that.
Yeah.
So elevation is your friend.
Okay.
If you're under them, you got no hope.
There's no hope.
There's no hope. They just their vision downwards is amazing.
And how about in like a small mound more so? Like if they're more rolling hills rather than like a ridge as such?
Yeah. Depends on if it's timbered or not.
Okay.
So, if it's only rolling hills, you need to give yourself a bit of distance.
Okay.
If it's cleared, back out and go and do something else for a while and come back later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so with let me have a quick look at this. So you've got the deer that you want to get to, essentially. How long, what's the longest you've waited for when you're going for a stag?
Red deer?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I've probably been pretty lucky that a couple of hours would be the most. Fallow deer, it's a different story. 5+.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so you're just sitting yourself in one location and just sitting to watch?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, constantly checking the wind with my wind indicator, the powder.
Yeah.
Smoking a bottle, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, just get myself comfortable so that I don't have to make many movements. I will pull my pack off so I can just slip my mouthpiece in for a drink.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff.
How about if you're on property that typically swells with the wind where you're located? So in between ridges, for instance, or you've got maybe like a ridge with a mountain with a ridge and you're in the middle of it and that's where they are as well. What are you kind of tending to do? Just get that distance?
Head to the ridge,
okay,
because you will get constant wind direction on a ridge. The only reason you've got swirls is because you're in
the middle of it all.
Geography that changes the direction of the wind.
Yeah. How about if you don't have glassing sight of them on a ridge? Like if you're losing sight of the deer, they're commonly going to stay in that one location when they're in
the middle of the day. Or,
yeah.
Yeah. Look, they'll bed up. If as soon as his girls bed up, he beds up.
He goes, yeah.
And they're worn out. They're busy.
Yeah, okay.
They only get 4 weeks of the year to do this.
Yeah.
So they're flat out. Imagine if you only got 4 weeks of the year to do that. Make the most of it, right?
Yeah.
So these guys don't mess around. And as soon as if everybody's down on their belly, they do the same. You just need to get yourself in a position where you just can keep checking.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're moving around. If they can't direct line of sight see you, you'll be fine.
How is it always April? Like I've heard people talking about the rut potentially changing with the seasons changing, with the weather changing. Is it based on weather or is it based on something else? It's
based on the solstice, the length of days.
Okay, yeah.
That's why they usually rut on Easter, unfortunately.
Yeah.
For them. But I have hunted them on the 14th of March, rutting in Queensland.
Yeah.
Full-blown raw. I have been out in June and I've heard them roaring.
Far out.
Okay, but that is all to do with the hind cycle.
Yeah, okay.
You'll have girls that'll come in early or girls that'll come in late. But for the main part, 99% April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in regards to the deer that you see at your property all the other time of the year, are they going to stay there or do they go elsewhere to rut?
I don't see many stags on the properties that I hunt. One particular property next door holds the stags during the off season.
Yeah.
But they come to where I hunt.
Because that's where the does are.
Because we hold the girls.
Yeah.
And in the same stags, they will hunt in the very, very close to the same area every year. Depending on where the girls are, of course. But just last year, I took a client to a 4 with a downward-facing bay tine on his right side. And I had watched him for the last 3 or 4 years, and he didn't get any better than a 4. And decided to take him out of the breeding cycle.
Yeah.
But he had rutted in the same gully, the same bench, for those 4 years.
Yeah.
Creatures of habit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think I mentioned on the previous podcast, these guys, the theory is that they go back to where they were born to grow their velvet because that's where their mum is.
Yeah. Okay.
And they move away from there. Well, that's where their mum and their sisters are.
Yeah, that's typical of elks too, isn't it?
I don't know.
I think I've heard that previously. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they move away from there to rut.
Okay.
So they're not,
going in with that same.
Just going in line breeding.
Yeah.
Is a nice way to put it. Yeah.
Definitely. And I mean, based on antlers, you can kind of tell on how strong a breed is, right? Or how good the bloodline is.
The bloodline, yes. Yeah. And you can also tell by the shape of the stag. Like, I've shot stags that are smaller in body size than hinds.
Okay.
Something's not right with that critter. When you can pick up a freshly killed stag and he's not gutted or anything, you can pick him up off the ground with his ears and his tail.
Yeah.
So.
Far out.
Yeah. So, something's not right there.
No, exactly. In regards to eating animals, eating red deer in particular, does it matter? Like, what's the best eating of a red deer? Is it does? Is it yearlings? Is it an old mature stag? What do you? Might be personal preference. I'm not sure, but
Well, it is. A lot of guys don't, or a lot of people don't like the rank taste or the gamey taste of an older stag. I'm one of those.
Yep.
I'm not particularly fussed on it, even with my German background.
still doesn't stick through.
No, it's not. It's not the most pleasurable dining experience.
Yeah.
But I find at this time of year, last year's fawns, so your spikers and your yearling hinds that are coming through,
Yeah.
they're tasty little buggers.
Yeah.
They're really good.
And so, when would you be going for them? They're not like you wouldn't necessarily be going for them in the rut. That's more like time for the trophies, right?
Yep. So December through till the rut, that's prime time. Even though it's really hard to keep the meat fresh because it's a really hot time of year up here in Queensland, the meat's good. The meat's really good. Even hinds before they cycle. But you got to remember that if you take a hind out between December and April, that she's going to have a fawn, and if another hind doesn't surrogate that fawn, you've taken two out.
Lives. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where, like in Australia, we don't have a tag system. We don't have a system in regards to looking after the deer and the deer species as such. Ethically for us, what is the best thing for us to do as hunters? When it comes to culling these animals, is there certain things we should be looking out for? So obviously that's one thing is if you're going to take a hind, you're potentially taking the fawn as well.
Yep.
Is that going to make a big difference to numbers?
Look, I'm a great believer that every 5 years, every hunter should be just solely concentrating on taking females out of the herd.
Yeah.
So 4 years, hunt the boys, and in your fifth year, you shoot as many females as you can just to keep that bloodline fresh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no point in just continually taking out the male of a species and leaving the same females there.
Always there.
You're just always going to have the same results.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So every 5 years, I'll still do it now. Like if I'm out particularly just chasing meat, if I look at the fawn and I look at the hind and I think, she's in pretty good nick, even though she's got a fawn. If I think the fawn is old enough that will survive on its own,
Yeah. Go for it.
I'll slip an arrow through a hind. I've got no misconceptions that there's plenty of animals out there, and I'm doing a good thing for the genetics in the area. Yeah.
And when it comes to genetics and culling, like if you see a stag that's in potentially a bad way, is it worthwhile just getting rid of them?
As in antler growth?
Or, yeah, I guess you could base on antler growth, but also if it's just a mangy-looking creature to some extent.
Look, we in the last 10 years in Queensland here, we're experiencing a lot of mange on our red stags. You won't particularly find it in those coastal areas, but inland in the headwaters of the Brisbane River and the Brisbane Valley, we get a lot of ticks.
Okay.
And they get mange. It's horrible stuff. It looks like a really bad case of dandruff. And their capes are absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
But culling, a lot of people say that culling, you shoot it just because you want to shoot it. Well, I can honestly say that I try and make a very sound decision on whether that animal should be in the genetic pool, because I've got 5 sons, mate. I want them to be able to shoot a trophy someday.
Yeah.
So I take a lot of things into consideration if I'm thinking that it's a cull head.
Yeah.
If it's older than 2.5, so a first head past the spike, and it hasn't got more than 4 points, I think about it. If it hasn't got more than 4 points, as a general rule, you need to seriously try and evaluate the age of that animal. If it's got a 2x2, that's a first head past the spike.
Yeah.
Now, just for example, that thing there is a second head past the spiky.
Fire out.
And that's what genetics does.
Can do. And so you've got, well, because I learnt tonight, 7 on one side because you can get a ring around that little nub on the left, and then 5.
That's called a basal snag, yep.
Okay. And then you've got, 5 on the other side.
Yeah.
Which is second year.
Yep. Oh,
Sorry.
that's a 3.5-year-old. Yeah. So second head past the spiky. So if you see any spikers, a lot of people say, oh, I shoot spikers for meat. That's cool. But if they're exceptionally long spikes, or if they've got an extra point on top, or some cool shit happening down around where they grow from the pedicle, don't kill them. They're going to be your unique
bloodline
trophies of the future. But if they're just like, oh, it's got 6-inch spikes, go for your life.
Yeah.
And if they've got little buttons, especially like buttons are very common with fallow deer, red spikers have got no business having buttons on their head for spikes. They should be
big,
a foot long minimum, and forks on top or
Yeah, okay. That's very interesting. I guess it's good to know because if you're going out for your first run, which I am this year, it's kind of like, well, what should I be looking for? And if it comes to it, like I'm going to have to be a weekend warrior this year. I can't go out and do a week long at all, unfortunately. Like I've got the whole of Easter over there, which is 4 or 5 days, which is nice. And I've got a few weekends teed up as well. But it's kind of like if it comes to it and you have to make the decision, it's like, what do you go for?
Yeah,
definitely. So how about gear when it comes to hunting? So obviously talking archery as a straight piece, like what are we looking for minimum weight in an arrow? Is there a minimum poundage you should be looking for as well on your bow?
Yeah, okay. This is all personal preference, basically. I shoot 73-pound Bowtech Realm X.
Yep.
I've got a 29-inch draw. So with that draw length and that poundage, 480 grain arrow and broadhead combination, so including the broadhead, 480 grains, that gives me optimum speed and kinetic energy.
Yeah.
So you've got a flat shooting arrow and you've got penetration. Not to mention the bad boy that's on the front that's going to do all the damage.
Yeah.
So you've got to pick a sturdy broadhead.
Yeah, definitely.
So as far as bows go, look, I can talk shit about other brands, mate. I used to be Matthews. I'm now Bowtech. It's a personal preference.
Yeah.
Some people drive Ford, some people drive Toyota. But, it's just a personal thing. Whatever works for you, whatever you enjoy shooting, whatever fits you well, whatever you get the best performance out of.
And are you changing your setup throughout the year, like with your arrow setup at all? Or are you keeping it the same all year round?
I don't even shoot field tips, mate. Even my practice, I'm using broadheads because I'm not a target shooter.
Yeah.
The only thing I use a target for is to stop my broadheads getting destroyed.
Yeah.
And knowing that I'm grouping all right, I take the target with me every time I go hunting because as soon as I get out of the vehicle, I put the target out. 3 shots, I'm happy. I'm happy that I'm not going to injure an animal. And touch wood, I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
And off I go. But any setup that you're going to hunt with, you need to make sure that you have used it in every sort of hunting scenario, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to sort of put yourself in a position like on your knees, sitting flat on your ass.
Yeah.
Anything that you can think of that you may be put into in the field, you practice with your bow in those positions, yeah.
And it's not that likely that you're going to be, like, at least talking from my experience and the situations I've got into, it's not that often you can be standing. Yeah. Like, unless you've got trees all around you, it's not a common thing that you'll get into the field potentially and be able to stand. So
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But, I mean, there's a big lesson in what you just talked about in hopping out of the car once you get to the location, actually shooting. I didn't do this for a long time, and I've unfortunately injured a few pigs. So, I mean, I just took the shot and I'm like, that should be a perfect shot. And they just got away. I saw like I had a light knock in there and it just saw it run along and just kept running. I'm like, it's going to fall over any moment soon. Just kept going, and then all of a sudden my arrow fell out and the pig just lived. I blood tracked it as far as I could, and it was little drops the whole way. Yeah. But it turned out that whenever I had my broadheads on, it would shoot 50 centimeters to the left.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is huge. And talking to a few different people, Jake, I guess Roski in particular, he said that if your bow is perfectly tuned, that shouldn't happen.
Correct.
However, when I put it on with a different broadhead, my new setup, it works completely perfectly. So I wonder, is it, 2-blade compared to 3-blade, is that going to make a big difference in the flight of the arrow?
Look, I'm not the most technical bloke to talk to.
Uh-huh.
Jake's your man there,
Okay.
or Ian Summers.
Yep.
Some broadheads just don't flow well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have with your 2-blade, I like having them straight up and down.
Okay.
Vertical on the arrow rest.
Yep.
That gives you more of a chance, especially with the speeds that we can shoot at now.
Mm-hmm.
3 blades, multiple blades, yeah, they're pretty cool because you don't need to worry about that because it's there. But, it can make a difference.
Yeah.
It absolutely can.
With it being straight up and down, I would have thought that if there was wind, it would affect it to some extent.
Well, it's turning.
Okay.
It's when it initially takes off is the theory.
Yep.
It's like a paper aeroplane.
Yeah, okay.
Possible. I don't know. Not the most technical
No,
bloke in the
cool.
world.
That's good to know.
But I kill critters.
Yeah, exactly. You're successful in it, so it's proven. How about going for sheds? When's the best time? Like, if, for instance, you wanted to get a few sheds after the rutting season, when's the best time to go looking in the paddocks?
Look, I've never targeted sheds.
Okay.
Never.
Do you know when they knock them off, just based on previous?
So it depends on age.
Yeah.
So the older they are, the earlier they'll drop, and then the more quickly they'll grow. They'll start their growing phase.
Okay.
So if you're out there around October, most things should be on the ground by then.
Okay.
October.
And so you talked about and this was before we started recording, you talked about the antlers growing within 100 days.
Yes.
So when is that period of life for them?
So
year?
you've got to think that their rut's happening in April. 100 days is roughly 3 months.
Yep.
Bit more. So if you backtrack it, they're all pretty much rubbing now.
Okay.
But if you backtrack to the start of November or the start of October, that's when the growing phase is. Start of October through to
So I
February.
saw multiple stags in January, and they all looked like they'd finished growing. Is that typical?
Yeah, it depends on their age.
Okay.
So the older they are, they cast early.
Yeah.
And once they've cast, they just start growing. Now, the younger stags, you'll see them in velvet right up to February.
Yeah.
But those older stags, they will start rubbing in January.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a good time. Like when you're preparing on a property for rut season, you start looking in January for places they're rubbing and.
Oh, look, I don't. I just go out scouting.
Okay.
Basically.
Yeah.
If I come across something like that, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, look, there's a rub. That's about a week old. He's got some age on him. If that's in the first week of January, you know what I mean? But not many blokes will get out there in January because it's so bloody hot up here.
Pussies. Yeah.
But it is a very rewarding time of the year.
Yeah.
The cast antlers are fresh. Always look along your fence line for cast antlers when they go under the fence.
Ah.
But also when they jump over, the jerk of them landing, they'll just pop off.
There you go.
And you'll find pairs on fence
Straight
lines.
there, yeah.
Yep. Dams as well, when they put their head down to have a drink in a water hole, they'll just drop in.
Yeah, far out.
Mm.
But it's definitely kind of like whenever I get to the property, it's definitely the first place I go to is the dams,
Yep.
just to check because it seems like, in particular while it's hot, it seems to be the best in my thought pattern. It's like, well, if I'm thirsty, I'm hot, they're probably going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
And many times I've seen them in the water.
Yes.
And they're just playing around in the water. They kind of fiddle around with each other. It's quite funny.
Yeah,
funny to
especially the
watch.
young ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, they love it. They just go crazy in soft dirt and in water.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so you're actually a butcher by trade. When it comes to knives and sharpening and butchering an animal, is there particular does the quality of knife matter? I guess.
Yes.
Like, should you be buying the best knife you can?
I'm glad you asked that. Look, I've had the same knife in my pack for, it's a bit embarrassing. It was bought for me for my 21st birthday.
Wow.
I turned 43 in 2 weeks' times. So I've still got the same knife. It's a Buck. It's a generic Buck Skinner, which was made in the US back when I got it. They're not made in the US anymore.
Okay.
I've been very fortunate that Espostel blades, Espostel is the way you pronounce it. He said, "Hey Kev, I want to make you a couple of knives.
Yeah, wow.
One for your wife and one for yourself, because my wife's into hunting as well. God
Cool.
bless her." And he just has involved me the whole way. Now, he's made me 2 spectacular knives, and I wish the bloody postman would hurry up because he posted them yesterday.
Yeah.
But the quality of blade will make sure that you've got a sharp knife for the duration of your hunting period, instead of having to put that damn thing on a stone every day.
Yeah.
The steel is important, the quality of the steel, the ergonomics of the handle, the safety of the handle. You got to make sure it's got a stop on it.
Yeah.
Because when you're out in the field, if you slip, you get hand slip over a blade.
Gone.
It's not pretty, especially if you know how to sharpen a knife.
Yeah.
But not only do you need a good knife, you need a good steel to keep that blade sharp. It doesn't keep it sharp, it just keeps straightening your edge.
Yeah.
But you also need that steel for your broadheads.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So, mate, knives are one of my favourite things in the world.
Yeah.
I'm not only a fully qualified butcher, but I'm also a slaughterman and a boner. Which makes my job very easy in the field.
In the field, definitely.
Yes. I can break down a deer really quickly, so it's good fun. But the quality of that blade means the ease of your job. You're using shit steel. As soon as you cut through hide, you're on the steel.
Yeah.
And if you hit a tooth, that's a stone job.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And always, if I can give anybody a hot tip that's starting out, always go through from the flesh side through your hide. Don't cut down through the hair. Not only will you ruin your cape or your skin, you just ruin your knife as well. Nothing bluntens a blade more than hair and dirt.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And then also, is it less, I guess, you'd get less hair around the place too, wouldn't you then?
That's right.
Yeah.
If you cut from the flesh side out, the hair just parts. It doesn't get cut. And your carcass is a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So the guy that I was saying that we went out with previously, my cousin's husband, he shot 2 deer and we skinned them, and it took him, I'd never seen it or done it before, so I was just more so observing than participating. And it took him good part of 3-4 hours.
Holy
Yeah, I know. So
smokes.
obviously it must be because it wasn't even his first time. I don't know. It just took him a long time. And I feel like that was, I feel like he was being pedantic with it, and that it was over maybe longer than what it should have been. How long do you think it should kind of take? Like once you get the hang of it?
Oh, look, for beginners, I would, no doubt, it would take over an hour to skin one. For me, it takes me 10 to 15 minutes.
And are you hanging them, or are you doing this on the ground?
So I do all the opening cuts on the hide on the ground. Then I hang them up. And then I strip them down and I punch off most of my pelts. You won't do that with an animal like a buffalo or a cow or anything. But there's a lot of different pointers. If you look up skinning deer on the net, you'll see that guys use 4-wheelers with a golf ball and all that. As long as they've hung them, that Achilles tendon is extremely strong.
Yeah.
You do all your opening cuts and pull it down a little bit, then you just hook that bad boy up to a vehicle of any shape or size. And just very gently just pull it. But I am very pedantic. I'm a perfectionist. That's just my nature. And I like leaving every bit of flesh on the animal. And I like my hides to be clean. And my taxidermists love my hides because they're so pristine. That you should look at a deer after you've taken the skin off of it, and it looks like a zebra across the back. That's getting all the subcutaneous muscle that is in the salvage and everything. It's all left in situ. So they should look silver with some red stripes, basically.
And so once, are you taxiderming most of your hides once you've got them, or?
No, look, red deer hides don't make the best rugs.
Okay.
They get messy.
Yeah.
They're actually like a quill.
Yeah. Okay.
They're hollow, so a bristle quill.
Yeah.
But fallow deer, I love fallow deer rugs.
Yeah, I've got a fallow deer rug. We got it given it for our wedding. I
Yeah,
thought it was
right.
a great gift. It was probably one
Nice.
of my favourite gifts from our wedding. I was like, that's incredible.
Yeah, fallow, chittle,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah,
absolutely
definitely.
beautiful. So
And so, in regards to Brisbane Valley, and I mean, where does the Brisbane Valley go to? Like, is Gympie still counted as part of the Brisbane Valley? Or
I
not
think it's
quite?
more Mary Valley,
Okay.
up that way.
Yeah.
Brisbane Valley sort of gets pulled up around that Jimna sort of Nanango
area there. Yeah.
You know, Menanbar area, yeah.
And so, how low can we see deer? How close to Brisbane do you see deer?
Mate, I could take you for a 5-minute drive and show you deer in the middle of Brisbane here.
No way. Just in some of the reserves we've got around the place.
Yeah.
Isn't it insane? Like, I'll talk to people about deer hunting and saying they'll go out on the weekend, like, oh, I'm going out hunting this weekend, I'm going to go check out some deer. And they're like, we've got deer here? Like, mate, there's deer around Brisbane. I didn't know they were that close. Like, so there's that reserve literally just there, the Richmond Road Reserve, I think it's called. Is that the sort of space you'd find them? Or?
Oh, yeah, that's, just go that way a little bit.
Yeah.
And you-
Because, I mean, around, so Murray, for instance, I've seen foxes plenty.
Yep.
Foxes, and even around Morningside, there's foxes all through where the creek is.
Yes.
And so I'll take my dog down to the school, which is right on the creek, and I swear I'm going to see a fox one day. I'm waiting for it to come out. Yeah.
yeah.
That's so bizarre. So they're right in the suburbia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not far, you head west, and there's a lot of escapees from floods on the Brisbane River, and there's some really good rooster and fallow around Brisbane.
Okay. And
But
so...
you just can't get access to get them, and,
No,
and
exactly.
then the council get onto them.
Yep.
They become a bother, a safety hazard. They sleep on the roads and all that sort of stuff, and they get poisoned or shot out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In regards to the petition that's gone around recently, did you see that, the Queensland petition to get...
Yeah, I signed it.
Yeah, same. I got on it. What do you think the steps from here are? Like, do you see it going forward? Do you see anything happening in council? Or
Well, let's not just say council and government in general
Yeah.
in Queensland. So the biggest gig is that, we've got these beautiful deer on our Queensland coat of arms, and they've earmarked them as a feral pest,
Yeah.
which isn't cool.
No.
And so that's the way people are treating them. When they're a valuable resource.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
They increase revenue in remote towns at a certain time of year. They're a very valuable source of protein, which can also grow revenue for businesses such as archery shops, shooting, like rifle establishments, all that. It's also a form of recreation and education for our young people.
Yeah.
But if we don't have people joining what we do, if we don't get actively involved in educating people to make this easy, and if we don't have, the government jump on board to give access, like I've been in some places where I shouldn't be, that is government land.
Yeah. Like lease land, for instance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's call it leased land. I've seen hundreds of head of
Yeah.
deer in like 300 or 400 acre block,
Yeah, wow.
like hundreds. And these critters are in there and they're eating the heads out of pine trees and all the rest of it, just doing what they do.
Yeah.
They're not being malicious.
No, exactly.
They're just surviving.
Yeah.
But if we don't have the government get on board to make that stuff accessible to the average bloke, and if they, put a ballot out there, do what America does, do what Victoria does, do what New South Wales does.
Exactly.
Everywhere
else but us.
Use it. Yeah, I know. Queensland's the greatest state in Australia. Honestly, it is. I've lived in a lot of states in Australia. Queensland's the greatest state in Australia, but they've got this wrong.
Yeah.
And to hold back from giving honest, hardworking people the access to the land that we pay to with our taxes to upkeep,
Yeah.
I think it's so wrong. And to deny us of, like they've got recreational fishing licenses.
Yeah. Why not make it
And they
abroad.
spend all this money stocking impoundments and all the rest of it. It's great. I love fishing.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But why not use the resource that's already there?
So I guess from a hunter's perspective, what can we do better?
Don't be so narrow-minded. Mm-hmm. That's my advice to a lot of people out there.
Yep.
If somebody says to you, hey, I want some help on learning how to hunt, and they're a trustworthy person that's good, you help them.
Yeah.
A lot of blokes are too shut down.
Yeah.
Secretive. Look, what the information that I give, it's only as good as you using it in the right situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's all part of the learning. But you're going to have a lot more success by walking out there and utilising a hind call than going out and ripping out a raw and scaring your first deer away and then just turning around and saying, well, that was crap. I'm not doing that again. I just walked 5 kilometres to do that.
Yeah.
No, thanks. I'm not doing that. So for the guys that are serious, and you can tell who's serious and who's not, give them the time of day.
Yeah.
Give them the common courtesy and the respect of educating them and pointing them in the right direction. You don't need to tell them where you go hunting.
No, exactly.
But
Don't
give them some pointers
secrets.
on trying to get some access.
Yeah.
Point them in the right direction of sound advice for their archery gear or their hunting gear. Don't set them up to fail, because when they fail, that's when they become cowboys.
Give their bow away, or they go into the places they shouldn't be, right?
Oh, look, I thought I was a hunter until I picked up a bow, honestly. And I've got nothing against rifle shooters.
No.
At all.
No.
I used to be one for years, decades. But it's just the next level. It's rifles certainly have their part, especially in meat harvesting and all the rest of it. And rifles are fun, man. You get to blow shit up, right?
Yeah.
They're awesome. My wife loves rifles.
Yeah.
But, there's something more satisfying out of archery for me. A lot of guys I hunt with still, they pick up the bang stick, I call them, and they might go around the bush and make a hell of a lot of noise where I can slip in, get the job done, slip out.
Yeah. Nothing
knows that I've been there. So that's the way I like it. So.
I often say that if I was a rifle hunter, I'd be very successful, because I'm a terrible bow hunter, that's for sure. And it's crazy, right? Because just how close you need to get. It's the fun in it has been the stalking so far. Obviously everything that leads up to that as well, but that's been the hardest thing and the biggest thing I think that keeps me going back as well, because it's like this challenge that I just haven't overcome yet. I'm going to keep going until I freaking do, and then there'll always be something bigger and better to go into, I'm sure.
Yeah, but as soon as you get it done, you're just like, oh yeah, I want more of that.
Yeah.
Because the feeling you get and the self-worth that you get out of it, of the success and all the work that has led to that moment is very overwhelming.
I bet. I've said it plenty of times, I swear I'm going to cry the first time I get a deer. Like,
if you don't get emotional when you take the life of another critter, you've got no right being a hunter.
Yeah.
You've got to have respect for that animal. And part of that respect is the work that you put in to being able to put yourself in the position to take its life.
Yeah.
And then having enough respect for that animal to take that life ethically, cleanly, and knowing that you've done the job. If you injure that animal, you need to do everything that you possibly can
to get it,
to hunt it down.
Yeah. So in regards to, I guess, going on to ethical shots, then what do you think an ethical shot is? Like, what should you, or what do you try to keep your shots within?
Oh, geez. There's called a magic triangle on a deer.
Okay.
So from the back of the foreleg, let's just say they're standing broadside on.
Yep.
Perfectly, both sets of legs are in line. Back of the foreleg, the front legs.
Yep.
Follow that line up, and then 1/3 body mass.
Yep.
That's about the ticker, or the heart, or maybe even a little bit lower than 1/3. But a very large majority of the time, unless your bow is super silent, they're going to jump the string.
Yeah.
And they'll drop. So you need to aim for the heart, and that way if they drop, if you're very good or very lucky, you're going to double lung them.
Yeah.
If they have absolutely no idea that you're there and they're completely relaxed or they're lying down, you want to go for a lung shot, you go for a lung shot. But there's a triangle there that goes from the point of their so you got the shoulder blade, then the humerus.
Mm-hmm.
The humerus kicks forward.
Yep.
Follow that line up from the back of the leg to where the shoulder blade comes all the way back, and there's just an open square of soft deadliness if you get an arrow through there. Front on shots, I'm not a great fan of.
No.
Although I have my really big fella at home, I took him front on.
Mm-hmm.
Very fortunate that worked out very well.
Yep. In that moment, what were you thinking during that front shot? Was it take us through it. What happened?
Well, he had just propped, and his nostrils flared. I was already at full draw,
mm-hmm.
and I've just looked at him. And I've thought, yeah, he's 30, and I've settled my 30 pin on him, and I watched his nostrils flare out. He just got like a brief whiff of us.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh well, this is the only shot I'm going to have, and there's an opening now. Because I'm a butcher and slaughterman and boner, I've got the privilege, I suppose, or the knowledge to know where that heart's lying. And I slipped it straight through. It went straight through his heart and straight out the back end of him.
Mm-hmm.
Full front on shot, slightly quartering on, very slightly.
Yeah.
But there's a crease there that it's just soft, and it's above the brisket, and it's on the neckline, and it just slipped straight through there. Like I said, I'm not a very technical person, but my bow was shooting straight, and I pulled off a decent shot. So he ran, 70, 80 metres and ripped a few trees out on the way and dropped stone dead.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't move again. But the quartering away shot, I like. You just got to... What's important for guys, learn the anatomy.
Yeah.
And don't worry about where you're going to hit them, but worry about where the arrow is going to come out on the other side.
That's interesting.
Okay? It's the exit point that's important.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you think, I've got to hit him there, he's quartering away, got to hit him there, but that's a gut shot. Gut's not going to stop an arrow.
No.
It's where that arrow is going to come out. If you're slipping it in behind, quartering away, you're slipping it in behind that last rib,
mm-hmm.
or a little bit further back, you want it to come out on the point of the shoulder on the opposite side.
Yeah.
And then in between, what have we got?
Lungs and heart.
We've got lungs and heart.
Yeah.
So double lung shot, very effective.
Uh-huh.
Heart shots, they seem to make a bit more ground on a heart shot. But lung shot, they can't do anything without air.
Yeah.
Very effective, yeah.
And so typically once you've taken a good shot, how long should it take a deer to drop?
Well, depends on how alert they are, how much adrenaline they've got. And if you've shot a deer and he's just been fighting, he's pumped up. So you give him some time.
Yeah.
One thing, again, it's very important virtue is patience.
Yeah.
Bow hunting.
Yeah.
Slip your shot through. If you're confident with your shot,
sit and wait.
Sit down and roll the smoke.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Jesus.
Have a feed. Give him a bit of time. But if you're in open country, you can watch them run and you'll watch them drop over.
Yeah. Jeez. Sorry.
Loud, right?
Yeah, it just goes and goes.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Well, mate, I think that's a good wrap. That's a good bloody episode. I mean, we've covered a lot, and I feel like you've geared everyone up. Like, hopefully we covered a few insights that you didn't get to cover on the other podcasts you got to do. I think I would strongly recommend, if people haven't heard that, to jump across and listen to that, because I found it super insightful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd just say thank you for taking the time, mate. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the listeners will as well.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, mate. I just love talking deer.
Yeah.
It's what I know. But anybody that wants to reach out, I'm sure that when you...
I'll put some tags and stuff, but what's the best place? Is Instagram the best place for you?
Yeah, I don't do much on Facebook. There's too much rubbish on there.
Yep.
Too many opinions.
Yep.
But Instagram's Kev_Schilf. That'll find me. So,
unreal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, bud.
Well, team, that is a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. If you have not already, please press the subscribe button. It really does help the show out, and it makes sure that you get each episode as they drop. Next week, we are talking to Brad Murphy all about shot placement and the perfect shot placement. So make sure you tune in for that one. If you do want to follow us on Instagram, we are at becomingabowhunter.podcast. On Facebook, it's the same thing, or you can also just search Becoming a Bowhunter and it will come on up. Our website is www.becomingabowhunter.com, and you can reach out to me personally at matty@becomingabowhunter.com. So if you've got any guests that you want to suggest to the show, if you've got any feedback on the show, or if you just want to talk shop, then please send me an email, guys. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much, team.